Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dirty Gaming and a new Zero to Hero series on the channel, where I start on a new account and build up a character as far as I can. The build I'm going to go for is a Smite Slayer using two-handed swords with the goal to build around Rakiata's Dance, which is a unique sword that sells for around 3 divines for a half decent roll. This is going to be quite a detailed series and we'll go through the leveling process, how I level and gear up in early maps, and I'm going to go over how I go about tackling early currency without any voidstones or access to T16 maps. Each section is going to be timestamped, so feel free to jump around. Let's go into the leveling first. Now, since this is a fresh account, I have to treat this like League Start, as I'll have no starting currency. If you do want to try this with currency, then obviously use leveling uniques or even level as Hollow Palm, since that works really well with Smite. I don't have POBs for alternate leveling, just for how I tackled leveling. If you need more than the details in this video, check out the POB, as I took snapshots at various points in the journey. I didn't necessarily use optimal links, as I didn't have currency to tweak the gear too much. I did have to start as a Marauder just to get Smite, because Duelist doesn't get access to it. I went through the Fizz damage nodes at the start and then picked up the two-hander nodes before going straight to Gladiator's Perseverance. This allows me to pick up the +1 strike mastery, as Smite can double hit on single target and means I don't have to run Ancestral Call to achieve this. This node also works well for when we get the first Ascendancy, as Leech is always on, and this node gives you 40% increased damage while leeching. After that, I then went straight to Precise Technique to get a nice damage boost. At this point, I also had to pick up a low level Precision just to make sure I was accuracy capped. Heading into Act 3, I took Burning Brutality Mastery for 100% increased damage to ignited enemies. The pathing nodes give you the chance to ignite that you need to get this in play. I then took the Accuracy and Resistance Wheel and the Mastery that gives plus 500 accuracy. These nodes have 2 plus points. Firstly, I don't need to run Precision anymore, and as we're using two-handed swords which have accuracy implicits, I never really have to worry about accuracy at all during the leveling. The resistances combined with Alira also mean my res gets a massive helping hand. My early links on a 3-link were Smite, Added Fire and Faster Attacks. Once you start to get elemental damage on gear and weapons, you'd swap out Added Fire for LE damage with attacks. When I got access to a 4-link, I wanted to get Trinity into the build. Anger, along with the lightning aura that you produce from Smite, and lightning damage crafted on gear, Trinity was super easy to balance. The 4-link I used was Smite, Trinity, LE damage with attacks, and faster attacks. At 38, I swapped faster attacks for multi-strike. As I said, I kind of had to pick and choose what 4-links I was going to run based on what colours dropped. If you don't have the issue of having to get currency, then Smite, Trinity, LE damage with attacks, and multi-strike works really well. I didn't pay too much attention to King's March, but I made sure I unlocked the black market, as it's a great source of decent gear, along with 4 and 5 links later on. Links by the end of Act 5 were Smite, Trinity, LE damage with attacks and multi-strike. I had Anger as my aura, Leap Slam and faster attacks for movement, Dash as an extra movement, and then Blood Rage for frenzy charges and attack speed. As soon as I dropped my first Chaos, I purchased a Prism Weave for a nice LE damage boost. I had to take a lot of the 30 strength and int nodes while leveling, as Smite is pure strength, and in Act 6 I swap Anger for Wrath, and that's pure intelligence, and we don't really pick up any from the tree, so we need all the help that we can get. At Act 6 I start leveling up more Smite gems so I can use Vile Orbs on them to turn them into Vile Smite. I also swap Anger for Wrath. Wrath will start at level 1, so you will have to level it up, but it's definitely more damage than Anger. At this point, if Trinity isn't proccing, I'll just drop Trinity and add another support gem in. Once I've got the mana reservation nodes, I'll also take Determination along with Wrath to give me some defenses in the build. I'll also start spending all of my gold on the black market on body armors to get myself a 5-link, so you want to buy the armor and evasion bases. Once you get a 5-link, you can add in any gem from Volatility, Inspiration or Faster Attacks. It's honestly smooth sailing from here until maps. All 3 labs were super easy. I always wait until the end of Act 10 before doing the 2nd and 3rd labs. It's just a habit of mine to do them together. The Ascendancy order is Brutal Further, Bane of Legends, Headsman, and then when you get to Uber Lab, it's Masterful Form. The reason I leave this one until last is because early on you're not going to have all of the endurance charges you need to actually generate charges, and you're unlikely to have many of the +1 frenzy nodes. So with a 5-link and Prism Weave, early mapping was a breeze. I just had to make sure that my resistances were balanced, and then I needed to start looking at what upgrades I wanted, since both my weapon and all my gear were pretty much trash. So we'll go through now what upgrades I made, just in case you're following along and you're not sure where to target first. The first upgrade you definitely want to make is to get a weapon with some lightning damage. Because we're not in league start, we're halfway through or partway through a league, essences are fairly accessible and so are bases. In terms of bases, I literally just bought a two-handed sword base from the Act 10 vendor. I bought one deafening essence of wrath, hit it on the sword, it had an open prefix, so I crafted cold damage on the weapon. That was it. It's going to at least double my DPS, and it's going to do me until I hit yellow or red maps, and then actually try and get Rakiata's dance. So my goal early on, always when I'm doing a 0 to hero, is just to try and get away from my leveling setup bit by bit, but to not waste currency. I want to make sure that every upgrade is impactful and not something I'm going to have to replace 5 or 10 levels down the line. I don't really need any upgrades at this point to push through white maps, so I just started on Atlas completion. Since we now get 3 Atlas trees, I can use this tree to earn some currency, then use my second tree to concentrate on map drops and progression. First nodes I took with the Syndicate nodes, as I needed to start getting some unveils. I then went up and took the Kerak nodes to get some missions. I then went to get Delirium Chants, as Deli Orbs at this stage of the league sell for 7 to 9 chaos each, and they drop in white maps. It's going to be the main way I plan to fund the upgrades to the build. I'll also be selling any currency or scarabs I get that I won't be using. The only upgrade I made early was just to put a super cheap runecraft onto my weapon to give me some more damage. Once I had non-channeling skills and Ellie Pen unlocked from Syndicate, then I dropped the nodes because I don't need anything else from them. When I got the Deli nodes, I was getting Delirium in 68% of my maps, and after getting a couple of Delirium Orbs to drop, I decided my first upgrade was my Amulet, as I wanted to get my attributes sorted out. I was looking for a Negate Amulet with all attributes, all resistances and life, and I found one for 9C. This allowed me to drop some nodes on the tree, since I now have much better attributes from gear. So at this stage, in terms of what we spent, it was 9C for the amulet, 1C for my belt, and then around 5C to craft the sword. So we're looking at 15 to 16 chaos investment at this point. Once I hit level 78, it was time to add Perseverance into the build. This is a unique belt that's super cheap, it's 1 to 2 chaos, and as long as you have Fortify, it gives you onslaught, and it gives you damage based on the lowest out of your armor and evasion. We're not really stacking anything yet, but just the onslaught alone is going to make the build feel much better, because using Smite at the moment has a bit of an animation time. The quicker we can get our attack speed, the quicker that animation time is, and it means we're not going to take an unfortunate death if we're stuck in an animation. The only thing you need to do is obviously make sure you have Fortify at this point, and really on a budget there's 2 options. You can either put a Fortified gem into your links, but it is not the best damage gem in the world, and because Smite has a melee hit and an area hit, it's only going to give damage to the melee portion. So I made the decision to actually path down to Rampart, and then take the Fortified Mastery, so that every time we hit an enemy with Fortified, then all our onslaught will kick in from Perseverance, and it's going to feel much, much smoother. I could also afford a 6-link, so I bought a 6-link Marshal's Brigandine for 20 chaos, and an Awakened added lightning damage for 25C. I stupidly wasted another 20 chaos trying to get 5 red and 1 blue socket on the armor and evasion base, when I should have just settled for the colours that were already on it, which is 1 blue, 1 green and 4 red, and just run faster attacks. I crafted some resistances onto the armour, and after that, it was time to take the build out for a test drive. If we ignore the silly colouring attempt, which I should never have done, cost of the build at this stage is 62 chaos. I'll let a bit of mapping footage play out so you can get an idea of the build at this stage. build was now way overtuned for the content that it was running, as I was only just into mid-tier yellow maps. However, the idea of the playthrough was to farm currency in lower maps to help people who may struggle earning their first few divine orbs. At this point I was still not bothered about Atlas progress, as I had a lot more upgrades that I needed to make, and I wanted to make sure that I was replacing all my campaign gear and then in a place to farm 3 divines as quickly as I could to get Rakiata's Dance, and then a few reservation jewels to run Determination, Grace and Wrath. First thing I replaced was the helmet. I replaced it with an armor evasion base with big intelligence, as I was still relying on my passive tree to cap my intelligence. I purchased a base for 20C, used a few essences, and then the helmet was good to go. Embers and Icons were dirt cheap, so I rolled the implicits that I wanted, which were mana reservation and reduced mana cost of attacks. The next protocol was a new ring with non-channeling skills, as it took me forever to get Elrion to drop me some jewelry so that I could unveil that mod. The ring cost me 15 chaos. It was then time to buy a pair of gloves. I needed big accuracy, so I looked for the cheapest half decent base with fractured accuracy, and I found one for 15 chaos. I used 12 chaos of Zeal essences to roll attack speed, and then around 10 chaos to get the implicits that I needed, which were +1 strike and lightning exposure. And then finally I needed to get some jewels into the build to help with mana reservation. They cost a total of 15 chaos, one cost me 5 chaos and the other cost me 10. At this point I was then ready to farm Rakiata's Dance, because I completed Uberlab, which was really the last thing I needed to shore up my defenses, as I can now get big endurance charges into the build, which is going to feel a lot better because I don't have a huge life pool, and at this stage I have moderate armor and evasion but nothing to write home about. So in order to farm Rakiata's Dance, I literally just put maps in. It didn't matter whether they were scoured, magic or rare, or what tier they were. All I wanted was to get to 5 layers of delirium to collect some delirium orbs. At this stage I'd managed to collect all the deli nodes I needed on the tree that gave me better chances to get delirium orbs and better layers of rewards. It took me an hour and 15 minutes in total of mapping to farm the 3 divines I needed to get Rakiata's Dance. Obviously this is nothing to write home about, but you need to bear in mind I wasn't even into red maps at this stage, but I wanted to show that you can farm currency without having your voidstones and without having all your Atlas. Yes, 1-2 divines an hour is not great, but at this stage when I don't have any currency invested into the build, it's really nice. Now what this sword does is it inverts all resistances. So the first thing I needed to do was drop the mastery that inverts resistances, because it does absolutely nothing. The other thing I needed to do was make sure that I dropped elemental weakness from the build, because this is actually going to make enemies tankier. So Rakiata's works really well because I now don't need to curse enemies. It's just one less thing that I have to do. What I did need to do once I got Rakiata's was redo my gems, because it comes with big cold damage and big lightning damage, which means Trinity is back on the table. I didn't want to risk running through all my chaos to try and get 5 red, 1 blue again, so what I went for was 2 blue, 1 green, 3 red, which is much easier to hit using the 1 blue craft on the bench. The 6th link I settled for was Vile Smite, Awakened added lightning, Awakened added cold, which I purchased for 25C, Volatility, Multi-strike, and then Trinity support. The build is now good to push through the Atlas. I've got my 2nd tree unlocked, so I can make this tree a pure mapping tree. So the cost of the build at this stage is now around 3.4 divines. We added lots of items onto the build, but it was currency that I easily farmed through just delirium orbs and odd scarabs that I dropped. So I'm really happy with where the build is at this point, and I can now go and push through my Atlas. What I'll then do in the next video is go up to 2 voidstones, and then we'll look to some farming strategies that you can use to earn a few divines an hour. If you're maybe really slow at progressing, or you've started the league late and you've only got your 2 voidstones, you're not going to be able to do a lot of the mapping strategies that are around at the moment. I'm obviously getting to the point where I'm going to need to start farming some proper currency to really start pushing this build further. So the next video, along with just the 0 to hero, is going to include some mapping strategies that you can use to make currency if you've only got 2 voidstones and a few of your favorite slots unlocked. I'll leave a POB in the video description. I've tried to make it step by step as much as I can, so I've just been importing all of the skills, gear, items and tree at different points of the build. I've put a few notes into the POB for kind of the leveling process, what to look for in early maps, but everything I've done I've covered in this video. There isn't anything I've left out. All the items and all the costs have been included, and I'm really looking forward to the next episode to see where we can take the build next. That's it for this episode. If you do enjoy this sort of content, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. It really helps. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.